Okay, so the last of the subjects that we'll work with before we kind of just get into a little bit more open-ended stuff is, I just call it the drags and the redirects. So for me, it's just gonna be the arm drag and then the 2-on-1, okay? So the arm drag in its simplistic sense, most simplistic sense, is basically just hand goes on the wrist, hand goes to the back of the tricep, we drag them across, we come back. That's what arm drag is. Like, it's conceptually, it's the easiest damn thing ever, right? The wrist can be like this, the wrist can be like this. I like to grab the hand a lot just because the hand gives me better control. Yeah, exactly. Screw you, buddy. But the other thing I noticed is if I can have this position, this on top inside position, the drag is much more powerful because it starts to bring that elbow out a little bit, okay? So a couple things before we get to like how I get to it. So when we finish the drag, so what makes the drag difficult to do, but also super useful, is that if you look at me and Donahoe right now, right, we are both in exactly the same position, right? So who wins? Either the guy who's quickest or the guy who grabs the fastest out of there. So a couple things that we have to do is I have to turn the corner. So you see how both of us, like our chest and our shoulders are parallel, right? I want to be perpendicular. So that's the main thing. So now, if he has stuff I can grab, I absolutely grab that because that's probably the only way I'm gonna be able to leverage this on my feet and in space, right? So I'm here and here. If he has stuff, it could be the belt or even just something as simple as like grabbing pants or like grabbing the back of the butt cheek. Like I do that all the time too. Like everyone in the club's all too aware of that. But like just anything to just give me a centimeter of advantage. And then once I get that, so now once I'm here and here and I start to beat that just a little bit, now running and beating it all the way through is somewhat easy, right? But it's that initial burst that's difficult. Because usually what ends up happening, you're like here and here, and I go for this, and he goes for it, and we just kind of end up like mutually, you know, nothing happens with it. So that's the basic arm drag, which is what makes it different than 2-on-1 conceptually for guys who are kind of new, is that the arm drag is basically across the body's opposite arm. So technically it's same arm to same arm. It's my right arm to his right arm, but it's across the body. The 2-on-1 is the opposite. So the 2-on-1 is on the same side, right? So the standard 2-on-1, the standard Russian tie we call it, is basically when I have wrist control and I'm behind his tricep here, right? And I use that to gain leverage. So I have two of my arms on one of his, right? So I can kind of control it, right? So two main things I want to do with that is one, if I can get to here and here, I'll pull him down. When I pull him down, then I come out behind him. The other thing I'll do is if he doesn't want me to pull him down and he pulls that arm in, is I pull that arm up, and then same thing, I come in here, right? Now I also use it in this sense because now most guys are right-handers. It's like now I have two hands, right, to keep his hand away from his belt line. Can he draw his hand with his left hand? Yeah. Did I say draw his hand with his left hand? Can he draw his gun with his left hand? Certainly. But like, I'll venture to guess Donahoe's probably never done a weak side draw and then a transition off of the hip to do it. Let's see if you can do it. Oh, that's what we're gonna do? Okay. No. So, exactly, so that one's difficult because the only other way that I've ever really like seen guys do it is like, so if Donahoe's got the arm here, is I can go here and here and I can transfer, I forgot I got my fingers taped. So I can transfer to here and here. Now, I'm not super worried about that. That's much more easy to deal with than him, you know, being able to get it with his actual shooting hand on that. So, couple ways that this is going to happen. So you guys have already been locked up a little bit. So the primary way is just simply that he reaches for me and he puts pressure into me, especially if he discovers I have things on my belt that he might want, my firearm, stuff like that, right? So anytime a guy is putting pressure and or reaching towards your midline, that's when we arm drag. Super simple, doesn't take much effort. So here and here, Donahoe reaches, boom. That's all the arm drag has to be in its most simplistic sense, right? One of the ways we get it so we're locked up, right? So we've already done some of the collar tie and some of the underhook, right? So I've got this, So I've got this wrist here, right? Maybe I've got the collar tie, maybe I've got the underhook. So I'm here and here. So as I come this, so Donahoe wants to circle his way out because he wants to get that head position back. As he circles his way out, we come to the arm drag there and we gain access to his hip that way, right? Like I said, same thing. So maybe I'm here and here, and I start to get this wrist control, right? Sometimes when I come down, I can get this cross wrist control, right? As I'm coming out. And now that's how we start to turn that into 2-on-1. It works better also against the wall, right? So if I'm here and here, so I'm against the wall, and I'm putting this pressure, maybe I've got him pinned here, so I've got his good hand, right? So now I'm starting to, I want to try to gain access to his back, right? But he's kind of not letting me, so I start to get around. Now, snake that hand in, now we get that, boom. Now we start to come out there. Does that make sense, guys? Ernie, you look a little swimming in the sauce over there. Like I said, it's in space, it's very difficult to make happen, especially in like a no-gi sense, when you don't have like lots of clothes to grab and stuff like that. Against the wall, when we start to do that, it'll make a lot more sense. So like I said, so anytime a guy's hand starts creeping towards your midline, whether you're already entangled or not, and or whenever someone is putting a particularly high amount of arm-related pressure, right? So so if Donovan wants a 2-on-1 out of me, right? So when he feels me pushing here, go ahead, so he can just pull 2-on-1, because he feels pressure, right? That's all that it has to be in its simplistic sense. So I'm here and here, and just boom, that's all I do, just redirects the wrist. That's all it has to be in its most simplistic sense. That's why, you know, one of the foundations of wrestling is that, yeah, it's, so you definitely don't advance like the mummy, but it's also why you don't usually paw with your lead hand, right? Because if I paw with that one, lead leg's exposed, but now that's pretty easy to do. But if I paw here, and it goes for that, right, it's relatively easier to retract. So that's just a simplistic definition, but same thing. So I want you guys to use the drag. With the drag, the entire goal is to try to gain access to their back, or use it to make the space, right? The other thing that'll happen, so if I got Timmy here, right? So if I start putting pressure and Tim goes to drag me, right? He goes to drag me, and I'm like, oh shit, I pull out, Tim just finds himself some other place, right? And then so I'm like, grab my back. So he cleared the elbow, right? He couldn't get access to the back, and because he cleared the elbow, it's easy to step outside of it, it's easy to be gone. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Yes. All right, let's switch our groups up again, and let's drill that a little bit, then we'll take a little bit of break, and then we'll kind of start our live drilling. Perfect, yep, that's exactly what it is.
Straight arm into this cross post. If they cross post, chase it, not chase the back. But if they're on the other side, they should be straight up. And rotate the wrist. That's all you need.
Yeah, buddy.
All you need
exactly. And that's also how, like, from a combative sense, like, why you don't like load yourself too much going into a guy, because he just steps outside like he did, like juke and pulled, and you're about you know, one step away from your face, and the first thing to catch you on the ground. Yeah.
It's just really easy to learn if you're here. Then you get the motion, because anyway, he puts a straight arm, he puts on the chest.
So when you go for the basic drag, so like that's perfectly fine for 2 of them. So first try this, so it's same side hand goes to same side hand, and then it's the opposite arm that drags, right? So that's, yeah, so you're there,
It doesn't matter.
yep, pull across your body now.
Knock that arm.
Yes, perfect, yep, good, that's exactly what it is.
This is one I use too.
Yep, and so like, and just kind of go slow with him, so.
So it doesn't matter, but that's the
This is
just the easiest way to kind of get that.
inside, so right, this,
That motion down.
yep, so that's your basic, okay? So guys reaching, boom.
Both sides.
Yep.
Do both sides.
That's what it is. That makes sense.
Crossbow, so if he
And again, this one, there's a fair amount of nuance to it. It's super simplistic. And kind of like once it becomes, you know, like an instinctual part of you. And like I said, of the like 2 jiu-jitsu techniques that I know, this is
There's no main one.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'll go kind of
You know, it's just like, oh, cool.
perfect. Yeah.
There's no structure.
So you could still.
So the same side. So
Yeah, and kind of see how this, yeah. I mean, and that would be a joint, and that's perfectly fine. But also kind of see how like the things start to pair together, right? So I'm with Jared, and so Jared's stepping in, right? And so I'm fighting my hands, right? But he's still close, so he fights the hands. And see how like all the rest of it, it's all connected to itself, right? Like he's fighting, right? So like, so I'm here and here, and I'm like, hey bro, like, and he still manages to like close. Oh shit! All right, cool. So it still starts out with fighting the hands, or it can, right? And because I defeated that here, but he was like close enough to me, I decided I was like, hey, I'd rather just take that, right? Perfectly reasonable. Yep, starts exactly, and that's how it starts in jiu-jitsu a lot as well. Like I just do like basically, like I start on the ground, and the guy's working his way like into my guard here, right? And same thing, so I fight that, boom. Right? That's exactly how the drag happens, you know, in the ground game. Same thing.
Is the most important skill you'll ever learn in any combat sport. It translates from perspective. So go ahead.
Like you said too.
His head's down like that. So now you're gonna go 2-on-1.
And you can kind of use that.
So now you're gonna go pitch this with your pitch your phone.
Okay.
Go. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that's okay.
You want my arm essentially, my arm to go across.
Yeah.
And look it off.
Turn your whole body. You gotta turn your chest. That's that thing.
And there's kind of, and that's sort of another component. So like, so anytime someone gets heavy here, like just hit him with your shoulder. Just,
See?
Oh.
right? Goes away, right?
Okay.
Now it gets heavy,
So if I
right?
come back,
Okay.
like same side.
It's like super
You
simple,
grab-
right? And that's
grab straight
just
across.
a simplistic thing. He doesn't want it there. Like, yeah, he just gets rid of it. Yeah, and that's basically. And then it goes a step further. So when I'm here and here, he's doing the same thing. He just also adds the grab to it. But yeah, but that's it. So and that's why like the drag, the elbow post, the wrist redirect, all that are like super like necessary components because otherwise there's nothing to stop him or stop me from just being heavy and just being a dick, right? So I'm here, I'm just dragging, I'm just getting yep, boop, and that's all it has to be. Just shut here. Boop.
If you have to do something, just take your elbow high.
Yep.
Okay.
High.
If I
Yeah,
decide to do,
that's
I'll
probably.
be here,